Alright, this is going to be covering my new tool, which is the an HDRI creator for Houdini. All of it is in the box here. It should work for most render engines, but the one I'm currently using it with is Redshift. So this is a default kind of test scene I've set up. So I'm going to go over into one of my custom shelves. If you don't know how to do this, you can just hit the plus here, click new shelf, and then you'll get this. You can name it whatever you want. Get all that good stuff going. Okay, but I've already made these. Up here is where you would, for example, say I wanted to save this. I would just drag this up here, and then it will save all the contents. And here you can select multiple nodes and do it. It's whatever. Right here is the HDRI creator that I've made. I'm going to drag that into the scene, and you won't notice anything really change right now. But before anything else, let's set up a camera, and then just set up a Redshift node. I typically go to global illumination, give it brute force, and then I make sure I have RTX cards, so I always go ray trace. Is on the IPR tab. These three nodes have to be checked on, and if they're not, then the HDRI won't live update on the screen. Okay, so let's hop back into the OBJ network. So all of the content of the HDRI creator is inside of this COP network, and then I put this inside here with my setup just to make things easy. But if you're not using Redshift, you'd probably want to use a dome map of your own, whether it's Octane, Mantra, Arnold, whatever render engine you're using. Just get it some sort of whatever's meant for HDRIs. Click that, and then on the dome map option where you're supposed to go find your image or whatever, instead just go OP and then these guys, and this will create that image actually on render time. We'll dive into here. You are going to need to control it from here. All of it is controlled with this red controls node. The rest of this you don't really need to pay too much attention to, as you could just mess some stuff up in there. And the best way to kind of look at this is I have a second pane here. You can just create this by split pane top bottom. I don't want that though. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go view composite view. And you'll see immediately, as long as this editor display has both these guys and these guys checked, you'll see the output. The editor display is just there to add these little bars so you can kind of see where this is below the horizon, and then this is divided into like northeast, southwest, whatever. Alright, so first thing you notice is that it's all black, and you got this one little square guy down here. First thing up here, you get your resolution tab, so you can change between the size. The higher you take it up, the more resolution you're going to get, but it's going to take slower to render and make adjustments and things like that. So when I'm working, I usually just leave it at the 512 by 256, and then you get your background color, which you can change here. So if I want to put 1, you'll notice that the background is now red. Whatever you want to put this to, you can change this to whatever you want. I typically leave this as black. So in the light control tab, you get all of these individual light controls. The easiest way to do it is this select node option down here, but I will show you. You can manually adjust these things. The values are very low, so watch out. Like 0.1 is, if I go 0.5, it's already halfway across the screen, so value of 1 is off the screen, so just be aware of that when you're dialing these in. So you can adjust all of this stuff technically here if you want to dial in some numbers, and they're all set with defaults, so you can always just revert to default. You can set the color here, whatever you want. You can actually set the shape too, so like star, rectangular end-sided, circle, ring, equilateral triangle, isosceles triangle, right triangle, and rectangle. Okay, so now the easiest way actually to control this, instead of doing this is more for if you want to get technical with it. I like to hit this button here, And then you don't got to worry about any of this over here. In this composite view, you'll now be able to drag, rotate, and scale the light. And so I'm going to hop back into the Redshift render view again. Now you can start to see something happening. It should, for the most part, update in real time. You will likely have to refresh every once in a while. You can see the HDR map we're creating being projected though. Whenever I kind of think I gotta look, make sure I refresh it and that it still stays the same. Alright, so there's one right now, and you can make this as big as you want, change the color, all that kind of stuff. But if you want to add more, you can add up to 5 of these, and they're all controllable by this. You could now rotate with the numbers if you want to dial in a little more exact, but all you got to do to add more is on this amount of lights parameter, just drag that up, and now you'll get your second light. And I can take this guy and do the same thing with it. So the further up put it, it's going to go closer to the top of the dome. So for example, something like right here would be wrapping around top of the dome. Like this would essentially be a ambient kind of circle light at the top. And then every time this closes down on you, you just gotta make sure you click on the controls node again. You can essentially turn lights off by just zeroing out the color value. Now if you want to change the intensity of this, you will have to jump up one level to the dome light and change that in here. Alright, now we'll go back down into the HDRI editor. I'm going to put this back at 1. Put this guy back at 1. And then refresh and make sure everything's looking fine. If you ever want to reset anything, you can always control middle click on these buttons, and they will remap the HDRI content back to its original position. Let's bring in all 5 of them. So let's if you wanted to adjust the look, for example, let's say I go back down to 4 lights and I want to make these more even, I could go into the master transform 0.75 maybe, something like that, I don't know. And then you can kind of play with these settings, and this is going to take the entire setup, transform it. Alright, so I'm going to show some other cool things you can do in here. You can go into the master controls, and you can blur this, so you can blur the entire thing. You'll see down here, basically it's just going to soften the look a lot. I'm actually going to go up and increase the intensity just so you can see some of these things a little bit better. Alright, so you can now see these have been blurred. And at any point in time, if you want to turn these off, you can. So next thing in this master control is you actually get the roto shape, which the roto shape is very cool. So if I turn this on, then I have to click this node. So what I mean by that is if we select this, it's going to take us right to the node. And now in here, if I right click, I can start to draw lights. So if I drop these guys like that, you can start to see this little look I'm making. And then when we're ready, hit enter, and it will create the light. Just gonna be way too bright at the moment, but we can see that that is now there. We can play around with it. That's not the best example of using this, but you can see how that could be useful, and how you could want that. Okay, and then one of the cool things is that since all of these have their default values set up, if you hit this options bar and you want to reset, you can just revert to factory defaults and it will delete all of your settings, and just bring it back to the way it should be without anything on it. So let's turn that off. Let's do the noise deform. So this one will actually use a noise and will deform the output that we have right now. So turbulence, let's give it less roughness, like something like that. You can change the different types of noise, change the frequency, amplitude, exponent, roughness. I'm gonna take this back to normal. I'm gonna move around some of these. So you can still move these around even after you're doing all this stuff. So it gives it a little more of a random kind of look than just square wood. So you can see in these reflections it looks a little more, I don't know, natural, I guess. But this actually works cooler when you use the separate background color. And this one actually has its own ramp parameters. For this, I'm going to turn this off. But in the background option, you have your options: background color and background ramp. So checking this on will create a ramp as your background instead. It's just going to be way too bright. You got your color 1 and your color 2. Color 1 is the black, color 2 is the white. So let's just try and dial this in a little bit better. And then this length of color is essentially the farther you drag it, the farther it's going to go away in that direction. And you can kind of see it work like that. It's going to push it out. Number of cycles is the amount of ramps it's going to do. Phase is what you think it is. You could do some cool animation stuff with this too, I'm sure. Rotation. This you might have to reload every once in a while. So let's go like something weird, like 25. Just keep going until we start seeing it. Alright, so that's cool. Now you can add some noise to this. So you can make essentially some really weird kind of stuff going on. Alright, so one way we can get some more resolution in here, when you notice inside the render view that that seems very blurry on the wall. We will likely not have this actually displayed in our renders, but if you want it to get some more resolution in there, you can just bump this resolution size up. It will actually maintain all of the proportions and ratios that you have right here. It will just make it bigger. So at 1024, let's refresh this. You can start to see a little more detail in there. 2048, you can really start to see it get up. Let's go 4K. Now you can see it's still the same kind of look, but now it's looking really crisp on the wall it's being reflected from. However, updating in this setting is going to take a lot longer, so I typically stay in the 512 range. See how much smaller that is, but it typically gives somewhat similar results. So you can keep changing stuff around here, playing with this. I'm going to turn the noise off and the ramp off. I'm going to go back to the solid color background. I'm going to go in here and revert to factory defaults. Now when you revert to factory defaults on here, it will do this weird thing where it won't sense the correct resolution, so you'll actually have to jump up real quick and then jump back down, and then it should work. So now we get a lot of other controls over here in the mask control section and in the color correction end. Move this over a little bit. So you have your blur effect. You actually have another blur effect down here if you want. Then you have your rotor shape, which we went over. Noise deform we went over. And then color noise is essentially just adding some either color or noise on top of this. Typically I like to set this to black and white noise just so I'm not adding any color. This is kind of just to break up the light a little bit and make it a little more random, I guess. Now you can see they're not so perfect anymore. So another cool thing you have in the master tab is this pin warp edges tool, and you need to turn it on, and then when you do, you need to hit the select node again. So here you can actually kind of warp this image in some pretty cool little ways. And then brightness contrast, you can control how bright the overall thing is. Turn that off. So black and white is going to turn the whole thing black and white. And then invert is actually going to invert the image, which will likely give you something like this. But you might want to use that for something, so I don't know. Alright, so let's go turn on our camera some depth of field, and let's start actually setting up a shot we can tweak. So I'm going to go into the HDRI creator. Alright, so let's, without moving the camera, dial in something that looks decent. Alright, I think that about sums up some of the looks that you can get with this. You can see that it's a very nice, helpful tool. And all you have to do is just download the HIP file and then take these two nodes, or if you're not using Redshift, just take this one node and drag it up into an empty spot on your shelf tab over here. Thanks for watching, and I hope this tool can help you.